Okay, Catalina's been doing several PowerShell scripts for being able to do installations of Catalina's API for Dynamics SL, as well as doing management. So that way you can embed this into other tools, into installation systems, or whatever, to be able to go ahead and do command line capabilities without having to know much about what's going on in the actual configuration files. So in this one, I'm going to show you how to manage API keys, and what an API key is in Catalina's world is in the RESTful side of our API, we have API keys. Basically, they're just user names or user IDs or credentials that can have access to our RESTful API. So well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and start. What I'm showing here is Visual Studio Code, and I'm just showing this because it's an easy way for me to show how when we do an action, we can see the change in the actual configuration file right away. So in this first panel, I've got the configuration file for our API's config file, and what this is an XML configuration file that lists all the API keys or the users, along with which sites they have access to and what a site is. And don't get this configured with, or get this confused with sites in Dynamics SL's inventory. But a site in Catalina is basically a configuration. So we have these things called site IDs that point to a particular configuration. So you might have a site ID for test, a site ID for live, a site ID for development. And based on that site ID, we'll look up what that site is with all the configuration that's based around it, and that might have database connection strings and some other types of configurations. So that way you can have a multi-tenant solution where you can have one installation of Catalina's API, but then be able to point to different databases and all that kind of thing. So with this, you can see my configuration file is very sparse. It has almost nothing in it. Well, it has nothing in it really. And then on the bottom is my Powershell Terminal, where I'm going to actually execute the script. So here we go. I'm going to start with that, and I'm going to go ahead and pass an H, and what an H is for help. And I do that, and this is going to go ahead and show me a whole bunch of information about how this script works. So this is the script. The API key is a parameter, and you can see the additional parameters here with some information about that. But the API key is really the username. And so when you do a -API and then put in the API key, that's going to be what API key you're going to manage, whether you're going to add it, update it, or delete it. That's what we're going to go and deal with. So, and also just think of API key as, say, a username. Site key, you're given the site key when your system is installed, your Catalina system is installed, and the site key is basically your code that you use to manage things. And so that will basically tell our tools that you're authenticated and you can go ahead and manage your configurations. XCT files, this is the location, the root location of where the Catalina configuration is. So if I'm going to just hover over here, and you can see near the top left, I'm hovering over the tab, and that just shows me where the location of my actual API keys config file is. But you can see its location is E source docker CTAPI X file. Now that's the root of that. That's all you have to worry about. After the X files, everything else is part of that configuration. So we have things like logs, we have the API keys, we have the site configurations and all that kind of stuff. But you'll be given this when you've installed your system. And note, this is installed on my local development server. API pass back down here. This is going to be the password for this particular API key. If you don't pass it to the script, it won't do anything to it. But if you pass it, it will set the password for this user. Add API sites. This is basically a comma delimited listing of all the sites that you want to give access to this particular API key. So each one of these site IDs would allow this user to have access to that particular configuration. And Dell API sites, that is really the same thing, only for delete, and you would just pass a comma delimited string to that. -H is for this help that I'm showing you, and -list will go ahead and list all the API keys that are in the configuration file. So with that said, let's go for this. I'm going to actually try to do something real now. So I just pasted in what a full command to this script would be, and the main thing why people would want to use PowerShell is to be able to automate things. So you can put this into some other tool or in an installation script or whatever. But here we can see we've got the API key manager, that's the script. The XCT file, you can see this is my local location for my file. Here's my site key. This was given to me when the system was installed. API key, this is the user or API or key that I want to manage. So I want to, since there is no keys in my API key config file right now, it's going to add this. If there was one in there already with the key of API key 1, it would go ahead and edit it. And then add API sites. I'm going to add 3 sites to this, test, live, and prod. And so that means that this user will now have access to those configurations. So I could have the test pointing to a test database. I could have live pointing to a live database and prod pointing to get to another one. And then API pass, this is the password that is going to get set for this particular user. So let's go ahead and try it. So I went ahead and ran it. You can see that it went and added automatically to this API keys file. Here's the API key 1. Here's that password that got encrypted. And then these are the 3 sites that user has access to. If you look at how the script ran, it noted that it did not find API keys, which was this, so it added it automatically. And then it found that the actual API key for API key 1 did not exist, so it created it, and then it went ahead and added these 3 sites. So let me try something again. I'm going to go and remove API pass because I'm not going to edit that, and let me add another API site. So I'm going to add Devel. So this user will now have access to the Devel API, or the Devel site. It automatically went ahead and did that. Let's say I want to remove live and prod from this user. I can go and change add to DEL, and I'm going to take this user away from live and prod. And you can see now he only has access to test and Devel. Let me go ahead and change the password API. And you can see here it changed it automatically. So if you watch this, I'll change it again. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And see, it changed it automatically. So that way you don't have to worry about If you don't pass it, it won't change it, but if you want to go ahead and quickly change a password, all you've got to do is do that. Let's say I want to add another user. Let's go back to one of my original ones, and let's go ahead and I'm going to add a user called Brian. And so I'm going to go ahead and add it to test, live, and prod, and I'm going to go ahead and set this password to password. So let's go for that, and there we go. So super easy to go ahead and deal with that. If I want to delete API key, I can do that easily by API1, and then just do, and it removed that user. So now you may not want to have to remember XCT file or your site key, or maybe you don't want to give anybody access to that information and just give them the ability to make a call to the script. We can go ahead and do that by doing a configuration file. So if you store this configuration file in the same location as your script, you can go ahead and then store in some defaults. Now I've got a bunch of defaults in here, but most of these defaults are for our installation and management program for the actual overall API. But the API keys, all it cares about are these two configurations here. This is deleted, so I'm going to go ahead and resave it. And so now I have this manager config file in my script location. And so now I don't have to worry about passing this in. So if I go back down to here and I want to do this, and let's do API. Let me first go back to here so you can see it. So let's do API key Brian, and I want to add them to devel. And so all I had to know is just what API key I wanted to manage and what site. If I wanted to go ahead and change, say, his password, so if you watch up here, when I press enter, it will change. So you don't have to worry about doing a lot of thinking there. And if I want to just list everything, I can see that I've got Brian here. If I want to add another one, go an API key called test and password. And there you go. And then I can go ahead and relist it again. And I can see both of my API keys there. So it makes it really easy for you to manage things without having to go ahead and load some kind of Windows application or know how to go ahead and manage all of these types of things. If you have any questions about this or some of our other new PowerShell scripts that we're going to be releasing soon, please contact us at sales@catalinatechnology.com, and I look forward to talking to you.